Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. Jen, welcome to the show. So happy to have you on. Will you introduce yourself to our listeners, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Jen Schulz. I'm a wife and a mom to a firecracker 4-year-old little girl and a sweet, kind-hearted 7-year-old boy. And I am also a former people pleaser. So I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do. You know, you go to school, you get the good job with the pension, and you're just expected to ride it out till retirement. And I hated that. I absolutely hated it. I just knew that I couldn't sign up for decade after decade of sitting at this job that it was okay, but it didn't feel a part of my heart that I knew that I wanted to show up for day after day. So at that point, I started to kind of look into the world of side hustles and side gigs and what other opportunities there were for me out there. So I started implementing little side hustles, if you will. I tried a bunch of different things, but the one that stuck for me was real estate and house hacking, where we would buy the home that we wanted to buy and it had an extra living space in it. So we would rent out the living space while we lived in the other space, and then slowly kind of just repeated that over and over, keeping the rentals along the way. So I hit a point where when I turned 34 that I said, okay, I'm feeling brave. I'm feeling confident. I gave my notice. I went home. I actually threw myself a retirement party at 34.
So fun.
And I vowed that I was not going to work for somebody else ever again. That I, from that point on, was going to go out and do my own thing. And essentially that was 9 years ago. And I've been doing that ever since. And now I help other people do the same, which is create the lifestyle that they want today and then figure out what income streams support that, not grind it out at a job and then what's left at the end of the day is for you. That's not how I roll.
I love that. I love that so much, Jen. And I think there is so much to dive into here, but talk to me a little bit about what it took for you to have the confidence to leave that job behind. And, did you have a plan in place? What was your thought process, and what gave you the confidence to officially leave to go off onto your own entrepreneurial venture?
Yeah, well, part of me sticking it out there, because I'm in Canada, so we are promised a paid 12-month maternity leave. So I'm like, ooh, I'm just going to hang out here at this job for when we start our family. And then when I get that paid maternity leave, I'm going to go all in on one of the little business ideas floating around in my head, because there's always a million of them in my head.
Yeah.
But so I was waiting for that maternity leave. And my husband and I went on a 7-year fertility journey where the baby family dream that we had wasn't happening fast enough. So that's when I started to do things along the side of my job, still holding on to that dream. And finally, I was like, enough is enough. Either I have to make the call for me. I can't just be sitting around waiting for someday. But yeah, educating yourself and really getting clear about what you want in the big picture helped with my confidence for sure. But then when I threw that retirement party and said I'm going to go all in, the month after that is when we found out we were expecting.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That is so great. So was that when you were expecting your first, was right when you had left?
When I left that, finally put it in, retirement party, that's when found out we were expecting our first.
Oh my gosh. So talk to me about what that season looked like as you prepared for baby and also, started to build your business, scale your business. What was that like?
It was a big mixed bag. So I have this dream business in my head that I want to start. I have these income streams that are the real estate, the rental properties that are doing their own thing. And so I realized right away that for the rental property income streams that I already had coming in, I needed to systematize things and automate things because I was trying to do as much of it as I could myself. I'm I was fixing the small plumbing problems I was doing, and I just realized that with a newborn in my house, I could still go do these things, but I didn't want to go do those things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So systemizing things. Yeah. So for me, that looked like hiring cleaners to go and clean out a changeover if it wasn't quite up to par for the next people, hiring a good team of maintenance guys, plumbers, repairmen. And behind the scenes for me, it meant systematizing even the application process, creating application forms that were clear so there wasn't so much back and forth, systemizing how we did rental showings and appointments. So getting really, really clear on how could I automate things to free up my
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I can relate a lot to that. My husband and I also started building our rental portfolio before we had kids. And when I found out I was pregnant with my twins, we decided we had about 40 doors at the time, and he was working a 9 to 5. I had started my real estate office and my real estate team. And, we were at a point where we wanted to continue to grow, and we said we either had to get a property manager, or we have to let, my husband go all in on it and leave his 9 to 5. And the twins are ultimately what pushed us to that point, because we were doing it nights and weekends, and it was fun for a date night for us as a couple with no kids. But as soon as we found out we were having 2 babies, I was like, we cannot go up to a rental property and hang out on a roof on a Wednesday night, trying to fix a leak or clean out a moldy fridge. And so that for us too was a huge turning point of systematizing and delegation. Just what can we outsource without hiring a property manager to keep our margins, to a good livable profit, and how can we continue to scale if it is something that we're going in all in on. So is that what you primarily relied on then, was that for the transition, was to scale the rental properties, or did you have a new venture that you started after leaving your corporate job, I'll say?
Yeah. Um, so it was primarily the rental properties that I knew that would sustain me while I made this leap. But then the unknown too of, well, now I wasn't going to be getting a paid maternity leave on top of
Yeah.
that, and having this business idea. So I started building out the business, and then I realized that I've been waiting 7 years for this baby. Like, I didn't want to be structuring my day for these client
Yeah.
calls. I didn't want to be doing all these things. And I think as moms, like as females and as moms, people in general, I think, don't give ourselves that freedom to
Yeah.
pivot as often as we should. So I was holding on to this vision in my head that I'd had for so long, that on maternity leave, I was going to be building a new income
Yeah.
stream on top of the income stream I already had. And I had to hit pause on that and go, you know what? For the first 6 months, I am going to enjoy this new little baby that is sitting in front of me. And I'm going to heal from that traumatic birth that I just had too. Like, I didn't have the capacity to be able to build something on top of becoming a mom for the first time.
I
And I had to like wrap my head around being okay with
Yeah.
that and allowing myself just to live in that season of pause, reset, and grow as a family instead of grow another income stream, which is what my brain thought I was going to
Yeah,
be
I
doing.
love that you said that, because I think that is so important as entrepreneurs, that we give ourselves permission to not be growing and not be working. I think like we're our own, at least in my world, typically we're our own worst critic of like the standard of success that we set for ourselves. And I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of us are just wired to do more. A lot of us are type A, we really have that high drive, the desire to pursue success, which is great in a lot of ways, and I think why a lot of us are successful, but it also can be so hard to turn that off. And I think that's something that the mom guilt can come in a new way of, business guilt. And that's what I felt why I created this community for moms who are also entrepreneurs, because I needed somebody to understand that in my head, I'm not doing enough, even though to the outside world, I was doing so much, and trying to find what that balance was, whatever that looked like that was right for me. Because truly, when I was told I couldn't work, it hurt my identity, because I felt my worth was tied to what I could accomplish. And so I thought, okay, if I'm not selling real estate, what other thing can I do while I'm on quote unquote maternity leave, like you said, or bed rest for me before the twins? That was such a big fear of mine, was if I'm on bed rest, how can I start something new, make more money? And I started making hair bows for my babies, and I was like, I'm going to sell them. I like came up with a name, a logo, right? I spent all this time making bows because I couldn't just sit still. I felt like I had to accomplish something. So how did you find peace in your decision to enjoy that newborn phase and enjoy that baby?
Honestly, I feel like it was taken away from me, that the desire, I feel like I got slammed with a really traumatic to my body birth experience. And I feel like the universe just kind of was like, you know what? You have to hit pause here. You need to focus on healing. You need to focus on this tiny creature that needs so much of your attention, that I didn't have the capacity for the next level, that was probably the first time in my life that had ever happened to me. Because honestly, I can look back, I was selling hair bows, if you will, on the playground in elementary school. Like, I've always, that entrepreneurial, whatever that pulses in me is so strong that it's just
Yeah.
always, I can just see money making ideas
Yeah.
everywhere. There's certain ones that I just grab onto and I want to do
Yeah.
myself. And it's second nature to me. So for the first time in my life, the universe was like, no, like, so I feel like I didn't have a
Yeah.
choice. I just had to just like lean into it and go, okay, this is just like, I'm hitting pause. Like, this is, and I didn't resist. And it was for about 6 months. And then I started getting my
Yeah.
bearings again. And then I started like figuring out, and then my sister and I came up with a drop shipping business for selling like maternity gowns for photo
Oh,
shoots,
wow.
because we were in the baby stage of
Yeah.
our life. And that idea was totally different from the idea that I had started my maternity
Yeah.
leave with. So, and we just rode that out for a few years. But just, yeah, I don't think I had a choice. I just hit pause and
Yeah, that's
just rolled
so
with it.
interesting. I love that you mentioned too the entrepreneurial venture that you pursued was relevant to the stage of life that you were in, and that it changed. I think, it's so often it can feel like growth or change can feel like failure. Like, oh, what I set out to do, I'm no longer doing for whatever reason. And it can I struggle with that. Like, okay, did I fail at what it was, or have my priorities changed and have my goals grown into something different? So I love that you were able to acknowledge that what you originally set out to do wasn't going to serve you in the capacity that you originally thought it would, and you were able to pivot. I think that's amazing. So for somebody who is in this space of wanting to go all in on their entrepreneurial venture, but are still at that corporate job, still a people pleaser, if you will. Like you said, you struggled with that. What advice do you have for them to gain that confidence?
To support yourself with a like-minded community of people that are doing the things that you want to do. And even if you don't know what that thing is that you want to do yet, you probably have an essence of what it is. So you probably know, okay, I want to, well, the call in me was to ditch my 9 to 5 and go do something for myself that was more fulfilling. And I feel like in today's like Facebook groups, and like there's so many resources at
Yeah.
our fingertips, audiobooks. Like, I think of the amount of real estate books that I consumed while I was still at my 9 to 5, just getting the information and the confidence and the
Yeah.
education. And I did more than just read books, but that was kind of a big starting point, is just to educate yourself in the things that you want to do. That builds your confidence along the way. And then find that community of peers that
Yeah.
support you. You need to, if you are living in a job world, and tell people your big ideas for becoming an entrepreneur, or even just to start a side hustle, that is
Mm-hmm.
scary to them. If they don't know the language you're
Yeah.
speaking, that doesn't feel safe. They feel safe getting paid at a job
Yeah.
by somebody else. They do not feel safe out there carving their own path, but you're making money on your own terms. That doesn't feel safe. So you need to surround yourself with the people that know that, yeah, it's okay to leave the
Yeah.
job world and go out and do your own thing. You will
Yeah.
be
I think that's
okay.
such good advice. So huge. So talk to me about transitioning to having kids. And I know you said it took about 6 months for you to get back into it, but how did you manage the transition of taking care of your child? You know, you said you're married as well and running your business. How did you balance that? What advice do you have for women that are navigating that newborn phase and trying to get back into the swing of things with business and integrating babies?
Yeah. That there's you have to allow yourself to be okay with
Mm,
asking for help. And whether that looks like hiring
yeah.
childcare or asking for your spouse to step in while you have to handle certain tasks, giving yourself the grace that you can't do it
Yeah.
all on every day as well as you want to. I'm just thinking back right now to when I started the drop shipping maternity gown business with my son. It was amazing. I did that with my sister. We had babies. Her daughter was a similar temperament to my son. They would just sit on the floor chewing on the toys in front of them. Super calm. We'd take breaks, nurse them. It just worked
Yeah.
really well. And then when I had my second born several years later, she is just this spunky little firecracker. She will not sit still for 2 seconds. She is taking permanent markers, drawing all over my house. She's literally going to burn the
Oh my
house down if I'm
gosh,
not
that's so
watching
funny.
her. And as a parent, you're like, okay. And I have this new business venture that I was building because we sold off the maternity gown business when we were done
Yeah.
having kids. And now to having to like the childcare one comes up so strong for me because with my firstborn, he could be by my side all while I was building my business and he was fine. He was happy. When he got older, he would be coloring. My
Mm-hmm.
secondborn, no. She is an extrovert. She needs one-on-one, like
Yeah.
engaged attention. She can't just be sitting in the room with me. So I needed to allow myself to get
Mm,
childcare for her. And that was a huge mom guilt
mm,
struggle right there of being like, I have the option to be at home with my child, but I am choosing to put her
yeah.
in childcare. But once I made that call, oh, the relief that came off for me having the free time to go all in on my business. Well, my oldest was at
Mm-hmm.
school, she was at daycare, and
Yeah.
she loves it too. She's thriving in her little extroverted self with all of her friends. So she comes home at the end of the day. She's had an amazing day with all these crafts and
Yeah.
outside time. And then I get to spend
Yeah.
intentional time with
Yeah.
her.
That's I definitely love that you shared the different in personality of your children, because I know for me with my twins, I have one of each. I have one that, probably could sit there and entertain herself. She'll read a book, or she wouldn't get into any trouble if I brought her with me. And then the other one is like a tornado. And if I'm not watching her,
Mhm.
something is going to, if she's quiet, something's going to be destroyed. And I
Yeah.
never realized, I think I never imagined what my life would be like just having one. I didn't have a chance to have one child, but I think if I would have had one who was calm like that, and then to have a second one that wasn't, I would be so thrown. I think it would really mess with my mindset of like, what did I do differently? If I didn't have them at the same time, I would even think that with my twins now, because it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people that we see. But the reality is, there's so many things that are different regardless of what we have, regardless of what we're doing. Just how kids are, they're different even if we treat them the exact same. I can say this with 100% certainty now that I have my twins. Before, I thought, oh, nature versus nurture. I think nurture plays a huge role, and I do think nurture plays a huge role, but at the end of the day, their personalities are so different, and they had the exact same experiences. They've always been together. So I think that's why it's so important to not judge someone else for like what works for them, or to compare ourselves for what works to them, because the factors that, even if all the outside factors are the same, there's so many other things that we don't see or that we can't take into consideration of why that might work for them, but it doesn't work for us. So I love that you shared that. I think that's so important for somebody listening to realize is you have to do what works for you in whatever way that looks like.
Yeah, give yourself permission. Don't like all the external voices that are telling you, oh, this is the way it should be. This is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Ignore the white noise. Do
Yeah.
what works
Well,
for
now
you.
that you have had 2 kids for 4 years, talk to me about what the balance looks like. If you believe in work-life balance or work-life integration, how do you manage doing all of the things as a mom and as an entrepreneur and as a wife and, as a parent to multiple children?
Yeah. I would say it comes down to being
Mm,
intentional with your time, to literally look at your schedule and know what parts of the day are dedicated for business and come up with the routines and systems that, like in our house, family dinner time is really important to me. So the husband being home, Chris being home at the same time as me, to have dinner with the kids
mm,
together as a family and go for a walk after dinner, or to be able to get up in the morning time and us all being there in the morning time, just to have those intentional kind of, I guess, repetitive routines
yeah.
that are family time, and repetitive or not repetitive, and then intentional time in the calendar for date nights and stuff too. Because being an entrepreneur, the work, and if your husband is into managing your rental portfolio, you know how fast
Oh,
a
yeah.
week can go by. And you're like, where did the time
Yeah.
for us go in that? And another thing I do too is, on top of the where did the us time go, on top of the business
Mhm.
time and the mom time, it's the where is
Yeah.
the you time in there. And so I have this reoccurring little note that comes up in my calendar on the first of the month, and it says, what do I have in my
Mm,
calendar that lights me up? So I make sure that I have at least one thing in my calendar, just one, that's like a coffee date with a
yeah.
girlfriend that I want to catch up on, or an art class I want to take.
I
Like,
love that.
what? Just to interject those little pieces that keep you in the picture too, as
Mhm.
your own individual. Because being a mom, running a business, being a spouse, you can get
Mhm.
lost in all of
Yes.
that. So you need to keep your
Yeah, I think
identity
that's such a
forefront.
great thing to implement. I'm going to definitely do that because I think if I have one thing like I'm looking forward to, it helps me show up better for my kids. If I can have one
Mhm.
thing a month, a week, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, but something I'm looking forward to doing and I know that's coming, it changes my outlook where when I'm feeling, you know, exhausted and touched out and overwhelmed with the house and the grocery list and the dishes and all the things like that stuff, I think I get more overwhelmed by that when I don't feel like I have an escape from it, if that makes sense. If I don't have something coming up where I know there's a night I can say, I don't have to deal with that. I'm going to get a break. Even if it's 3 weeks away, to have something that you're looking forward to. So I like that you have that monthly reminder. And I think that's something that's so easy to
Mhm.
implement, but could have such a big impact on mood and mindset. So I think that's great. For your hobbies, do you integrate them during quote unquote work hours? Do you do them nights and weekends? Tell me a little bit about what that logistically looks like for you.
Logistically, I love to take a pocket out in my afternoon for the season of life I'm in. One of my main hobbies
Oh, I
right now
love
is
it.
gardening. There's something about going outside and pulling weeds. So in the afternoon, I make a coffee. There's just this pocket of time before I have to
Mhm.
go pick the kids up from school. It's quiet, it's warm out, and I go out. So that is a piece of me time before I get the kids, my coffee, and just some like
Yeah.
resetting relaxation time. That is key in my day. And then hobbies are often interjected on weekends with the kids. We bought a lake property, so we're out
So
there as
fun.
much as we can. It's so fun, and just like learning different water sports, and then evenings too, after the kids are in bed. Evenings and hobbies, again, for me, I'm a kind of an entrepreneurial nerd. So I kind of, that's
Yeah.
my time to listen to podcasts, to read books, to kind of watch the
Yeah.
YouTube videos on the different things that I'm interested in.
That's
But
so
yeah,
funny
that's
that
where I
you say
find
you're
my
an
time.
entrepreneurial nerd because my husband and I were filling something out and it was like, what are your hobbies? And he said, can we put work or like building businesses? Like, is that allowed? Because that's what we do in our free time, is like we talk about business and we talk about, the next project that we're working on. And, on that topic of working with your spouse, did you say you work with your husband with rental properties, or does he work with you?
Mhm. Yeah, we do, because we also have a driving school business
Wow.
too
So
that I
tell
help
me
promote with.
about how you navigate that and still prioritize your marriage. What does that look like for you, and how have you navigated that over the years? How has it evolved with kids?
Yeah, we always come back to this, because as the kids grow and as the businesses grow, we're just taking on more and more onto our plate. Sure, we learn to systemize and delegate, but we're always
Mhm.
signing up for more things. And so I feel like as spouses and as partners, we are constantly revisiting what is working for you, check-ins. What do you need help with this week? What
Mhm.
does your week look like? Just so you have an idea of the ins and outs of each other's lives, and getting intentional and asking the questions of, what do you need more of from me? How can I help you? And putting time, like for us, we have weekly lunch dates together. One of the days a week that we have, that the kids are in school and at daycare, we have an intentional lunch date together. Sometimes it is
Mhm.
honestly a business debrief and chat, but we try not to. We try to keep it personal and fun and
Yeah.
intentional for
Yeah,
just
it's funny
us.
that you said you try not to talk business a lot of the time, but for us, we try not to talk business. And I mean, we have date nights where we don't talk business, but my husband and I've noticed we light up talking about business. Like, what if I want to get him excited about something, it's talking about a business thing. So I really struggled with that for so long, of like trying not to bring up business, but then knowing he wanted to talk about it,
Mhm.
it felt wrong. And I was like, we need to do what works for us. Obviously, we're not going to be having like a boring conversation about the parts of business we don't like to talk about when we're on date night, but date night is like our dream. Like, when we talk about our big goals and dreams, that includes business. And I don't think for us, it didn't make sense to keep that off the table. So I agree. I think sometimes it does, it
Mhm.
has to come up, but I don't think it's a bad thing, as long as it can be like with joy that you're speaking about it, not just the not fun parts of business. Those I save for other work meetings.
Right.
So talk to me about how you have navigated scaling your business, and managing your time with your kids.
Yeah. It This scaling part, and it's funny, we kind of, not funny, but like I said, my husband has a driving school business. We have the rental portfolio and we have our mentorship program that we do. And we pick and choose which businesses we're scaling. We're
Mm-hmm.
not scaling them all at the same time. We call them well-oiled machines when we're focusing on one and we get it scaled up to a point where, like, okay, this feels really good. This is set into place, and getting those systems in place. And a lot of things now, we haven't hired a property manager like you. We find that we'd be giving
Mm-hmm.
away too much money every month versus what we can systemize ourselves. But we do have a manager for the driving school, and it's just the intentionality of still making time for the kids. Like, business is business, but when they are home, and it's not like kids need, when they're home, every
Mm-hmm.
second of your time, but to be able to sit down with them
Yeah.
and to play the board games. Like, your kids are younger, but for mine, they want, and your kids probably just want, like, to snuggle on the couch and read a story, and they
Mm-hmm.
just want that mom and dad time, right? So to make sure that you are giving the kids those touch
Mm-hmm.
points every day, regardless of what's happening in the business world. Like, even if you've had a crazy business day, you're working on stuff in the business, they don't need to know that. They don't, as long as their little world is still this protected little bubble that you're able to kind of
Yeah.
keep that piece of separation from. I think that's probably the
Yeah.
most
Yeah. I
important thing
love
at the
that.
end of the
I
day.
think that is important, and sometimes it's hard to do. But I think it's important to keep it in the forefront of our minds of what we are radiating. It might not be the words that we're saying, but the tone of our voice or our body language. I think they pick up on that. I realized that from a young age, my kids really just how they react to the energy that we're giving off based on, it's not like we said
Mhm.
anything negative. It's not raised voices, but just the tone and the body language. they definitely are different when we've had a rough day and they pick up on it. So I think it's so important to kind of check in with ourselves. I heard somebody who said they will drive around if they're on a work call or, until they can hang up the phone and walk in and leave their phone in the car and just say, I'm showing up, I'm here, I'm present for you, and I'm going to set it aside. So that's something that my husband and I are still navigating of, what works for us, what's realistic for us, but trying to have that separation. So what one piece of advice do you have for somebody who has left their job, they're going all in, they're also a mom and a wife? What's your biggest takeaway that someone could walk away with today after listening?
My biggest takeaway is to take those moments in your life, whether it's yearly or quarterly, and just look at the big picture of what you want your lifestyle to be. Because it's so easy to get caught up in just living a day on repeat. You're doing the diapers, you're doing the dishes, you're doing the laundry, that the other stuff that you want to be doing can fall by the side, and it can happen quite quickly, especially being a mom with little kids. So to look at the big picture of your lifestyle and the pieces that you want to have in your lifestyle, because maybe it's you want the kids to have a strong relationship with their grandmother, or like just the little things that would really be important to you, just to do check-ins to make sure that you are keeping those pieces forefront in your life. Because when you've got littles in the house and you're running a business, you don't have time to do everything. So keep your eye on the big picture if you want, the essence of it, and figure out how you can be sprinkling that in.
That is so
just
good,
your
Jen.
day-to-day lives.
I love that. Thank you so much for all of your insight and for everything that you've shared about your journey and how you're continue to prioritize your kids, scale your business. Everything that you've shared has been so amazing. Where can our listeners connect with you, and what do you offer?
They can connect with me at my website's 4Leaf Lifestyle. So www.4leaflifestyle.com. I'm also on Instagram as 4leaflifestyle.com, and through our podcast, the Manifestation and Money podcast. And we help people come up with the big picture of the lifestyle that they want to live, and then figure out the income streams to match it. So if you go to my website, there's a brand new freebie that's on there, and it is 15 side hustle ideas that you can start today to bring in an extra $1,000 a month. Because that's sometimes all a mom needs at the end of the month, is just her own money, but do that working around the lifestyle that she wants with her kids.
I'll have to go check it out. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. We'll link everything in the show notes below, so anybody listening can go find those resources there. But yeah, Jen, thank you for being part of the Mom Boss Central community, and thanks for all the wisdom that you shared with us today.
Thank you so much for hosting the show. I think it's a really cool platform for moms to check into.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.